James Steinhubel on the Health and Wellness Network with Tara Boothby, registered psychologist with Sojourn Psychology. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. How about you, James?
Very well, very well. Well, interesting time. Good to see that you're available and that you're doing business and that you're serving clients, because I think that probably now is probably the most important time for psychologists ever.
Yeah, it's a pretty unique situation. So, in March, when we first got all the terrible news about the pandemic, we were urged by our college to move our services over to online, or what we're calling teletherapy. So we've been 100% teletherapy up until just recently, when we've started to get news that we can start to move into face-to-face therapy. So we're working on our transition plan to do that, to keep people safe if they want to come in for appointments now.
Now, lots of new clients, lots of regular clients, lots of sporadic clients coming back in. What are two things? What are you seeing? Mostly, not mostly, but in trending, and what are you using from before that you never used before to make this good for people?
Okay, so great question. I think that what I see with people right now is that we are still in a very powerful acute stress situation. And as much as we think we might have made peace with it, or we understand what's going on, I think the majority of us are still in early stages of some shock and even bargaining as we're processing through the loss of what we're facing. So actually, some of the big theorists out there are saying that the real mental health need and explosion of people reaching out for help just hasn't quite happened yet. I believe that there's some truth in this, and I'm not quite sure how we're going to notice our mood and our emotion being challenged when we actually start to open up. So there's the culture shock that happened with the lockdown, and now there's going to be this almost like a reverse culture shock when all of a sudden we're going to be going out and trying to have some sense of normal. Can you imagine eating in a restaurant? So I didn't quite answer your question about trends, but the trend that I see is that we're all really anxious and we're all really struggling. A lot of irritability, a lot of escalation and conflict. Many parents are saying, I thought I was a good parent and I don't think I am anymore. So waves of self-doubt and self-criticism. And what's been working from a therapy perspective, I'm an attachment-focused experiential therapist. And what I found is my main method of emotionally focused work with clients really actually works extremely well online. And I've been having a lot of amazing sessions with people personally.
It's interesting that the first response of our society was to go virtual. So it was almost a either a survival reaction or a real stroke of collective genius. Because now, service providers like you can interact with people on direct virtual basis. So and I like that the explosion of mental wellness is just ahead of us, because people will be used to using this virtual. So so we're out there and we're in relationship, we're empty nesters, we're teen parents, we're new parents, we're newly married, we're bumping through all this, we're going through these things, we're seeing ourselves on Zooms. What kind of things should we be on the lookout for to say, I should give Tara and her team a call? What kind of behaviors, what kind of thoughts, what kind of things?
Really great question. So sometimes what we'll just say to somebody, a very conservative point of view, is if you're questioning if you need to talk to somebody about mental health concerns, you should probably talk to somebody. I think warning signs right now, definitely anxiety and anxiety in the body. So if you're noticing difficulty with breathing, if you're having ruminating thoughts throughout the night, if you are struggling to fall asleep or maintain sleep, if you have increased irritability, increased heart rate, your blood pressure is up. These are all really important signs that many of us are facing right now, and that fits with the acute stress reaction that we're all enduring. Of course, if you are having thoughts or experience of hopelessness and helplessness, if you're having dark thoughts of like, what's the point of being here? Please, I mean, talk to a psychologist, get to the emergency room or something like that, because that's extremely serious. And it makes sense. Like, it makes sense right now that our brain can get super dark.
Hmm. Hmm. Okay, and so same with mums and dads. Older teens, they're almost adults. They need to be listening to your direct advice. There's nothing wrong with a 16 or 17-year-old coming to the office, and you'll be able to help them and make the parental contacts that are needed. But it's mums and dads with 10s and 11-year-olds, 8-year-olds, 7-year-olds. What are we on the lookout for?
That's great question. So with our kids in general, noticing anything out of the ordinary. If your child is extremely social and all of a sudden they're isolating, if you have a really happy-go-lucky child and all of a sudden they're irritable or they're acting out, if kids start to act more physically aggressive, they're destroying their toys or they're fighting more with their sibling, I think you just notice these different senses of how they're holding their pain, if they're taking risk-taking behavior, if they are making unhealthy choices, like they're not practicing social distancing and you don't quite know what to do, that might be a time when a parent would consult for parenting strategies, or you might bring your child on in and we could work with them or with you together.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And a lot of these things, um, I don't know why, but as human beings, when we come to reach out for health, for help, our well-being, our mental well-being, there's this sense of shame or whatever, you know what I mean, or that we're different than everybody else. So just before I go on to the next line of questioning, is what about that kind of circle? If someone's trying to prepare to reach out for help, what kind of things can they ease themselves with so they just do it?
Yeah, I mean, shame is one of our biggest lifetime enemies. Shame, blame, guilt, humiliation. These are just burdens that crush down on us and make us feel even worse about ourselves. So it's a very accurate culprit, and it's something that can get in the way of us making good decisions for our life, whether that's going for therapy, doing self-care, applying for a better job, taking risks in life. So when you're considering asking for help or taking care of you and shame shows up and it's whispering in your ear, I think there's two simple questions that I might ask myself or suggest to clients. One is, what's going on for me right now? So trying to understand the shame and what is shame saying to me. And then a bigger question is, what is the truth? So shame says, you're such an idiot. Why would you ever think that you could do better? Well, what is the truth? The truth is, help is there. The truth is, many people are asking for help. The truth is, I have insurance, so I might as well use it. There are many truths that can override shame. And the biggest thing is booking an appointment, getting in the door, and then someone like me, we're used to talking about shame. So you talk about shame, we're like, oh, I've been talking about this for weeks. Let's do this. It's pretty normal in our environment to speak about pain and loss.
And then as adult children, okay, this is a tricky one because there's not a lot to look back on, right? We're adult children. We're being called children. We're our late 50s, early 60s. We're younger and healthier than ever before. Same with our parents, right? But they're getting old too. The oldness seems to sort of happen quick, right? But they stay young. So how do we, what kind of signs do we in this modern, people living older? What am I looking for in my older mom and dad?
Yeah. So it's interesting because my parents are in their 60s and my husband's father and his father's girlfriend are in their 80s. And looking for things, it's different. So I mean, the biggest thing we want to pay attention to is the word stress. Stress is a pretty safe word in the seniors demographic. And it's like, how are my parents doing with stress? That's a pretty safe question to even ask them. Like, are
Mm-hmm.
you coping well? Are you feeling stressed out? Um, when's the last time you've seen your medical doctor? Especially if they're not only in the age at risk category, but they also have some additional health complications.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
And then, which is, all needed. I think we had to talk about that. But let's talk about the restart and the relaunch. Now the coaching side. So now, lots of opportunities have opened up for many, many business people, right? Um, what's a good launch forward? What are we holding on? What do we look at to let go of? What? How do we get that right position momentum for ourselves?
Yeah, that is such a big question. How do we have 3 hours? I'm just kidding.
That means we
Um,
get to visit again.
yeah, exactly. I mean, I think that a great piece. So I started off my career as an addictions counselor prior to coming out to Alberta. And one of the things from the addiction philosophy is something we call a moral inventory. I think that sitting down, having a meeting with yourself, and just going through your moral inventory of what were the unnecessaries in my life before, what were the things that were actually hindering me, what are the vices that I've been abusing in quarantine that I need a plan for, because we all have, that bag of chocolate or that bottle of wine that we have been consuming. And that's just the truth right now. We need some new rules. And I like that we're using this term new normal. However, from my point of view, we're not quite there. So part of what happens when we shift from the old cycle of normal and we're pursuing into a new cycle of normal is that there is this space that is very frightening and lonely, where we are having to let go of things that weren't working so that we can find a way into that new normal where things are going to work. But there's loss. Like, as we let go of the old bad, we also let go of the old good. There's some good things that it's sad to let go of.
Mm. And that leads us to definitely many, many future conversations about things that I didn't even, I don't even want to use the terminology because you might not agree with me, but let's just say, greater success and greater happiness and greater joy for people. So I look forward to visiting with you again. Tara Boothby, registered psychologist, Sojourn Psychology, with me, James Steinhubel, TVU Health and Wellness Channel. Thank you so much, Tara.
Thank you.